All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the May 19th, 2021 Chairs Meeting to order and welcome everyone and thank you for being here. Let me just first say that we're expecting Carmen, the town moderator, Carmen Reese, the town moderator, to join us around 9:30 to walk us through all the preparations she's been working on. In that vein, I will, however, remind everyone that Jeremy sent out a notice to all the chairs to make sure that if you do have a warrant article to be presented at town meeting, that your motions are presented, sent to the town moderator as well as the town manager's office by 9 o'clock on Friday morning. So that's a critical timeline right now. Let me also comment that previously we've talked about committee vacancies and anticipating them because many of the committees continue to meet and need to meet immediately after town meeting. And thank you to those of you who have anticipated those vacancies and have already been putting forth nominations so that we can act, the select board can act on them prior to town meeting. But of course, all of the sitting committee members will remain committee members through town meeting. So in addition to the new appointees, if you have any filling vacancies on your committees, remember that they need to be sworn in prior to committee meetings that occur immediately after town meeting. So that can be done and arranged prior to town meeting with the clerk's office to be sworn in once you receive the appointment card from the town manager's office. The other issue related to that is the quorum issue. I know that immediately after town meeting last year, when some committees did need to meet to address immediate business, they may or may not have had quorum. So that's another reason we're trying to anticipate this ahead of time and have all of this in place. So just watch that for your first meetings after the town meeting. And I'm going to say this now because some of you need to leave a little earlier than the conclusion of the meeting, but I want to thank all the committee chairs and members for all the incredible work that you've done this year. I think you've been extremely professional and thoughtful in how you've received public comment, how you've considered that public comment and made decisions that weren't always popular in that context. So thank you for all that good work that's happened this year. As a reward for all that good work, there will be no chairs meeting scheduled for June. That normally would have occurred just right after town meeting, and we think you've all earned a well-earned break. So with that, I think we're ready to get the updates from the committees, and thank you for those representatives who are here today. I'm going to begin with Kristen.
Thanks. Good morning. This is Kristen Ferguson with the Planning Board, and apologies, I'm one of the people that need to leave early today. We had the public hearing last week, and it was, relatively peaceful and quiet. We were happy to have a presentation about the historic district map amendment, and I'll let Peter talk about that. But otherwise, there were only kind of questions about our two-family by special permit amendment that we're proposing and our earth removal. So we will be communicating with the town moderator about our recommendations for what's on the consent calendar, but she was on, so she knows as well, pardon my guest. And then on June 22nd, we will hold a public forum about the Thoreau Business District new zoning laws we are proposing. And we were debating whether to hold that indoors or whether to hold that in person or virtual, because we know the state of emergency is changing right in June, but we decided to keep that virtual right now to encourage participation, and we're going to use breakout rooms. So hopefully it'll be more clear, the delineation between when we can be, have these in-person meetings again, and then what's advantageous for virtual meetings. But I believe that is all for the planning board. We do have a member that is concluding his term this year. So we are looking for a new member, and we don't have a lot of green cards in place yet. So we're hoping that there's a flurry soon.
Thank you, Kristen. Kristen, I'll just remark that I believe the select board, in working with the town moderator, recommended that the two-family warrant article be removed from the consent agenda for the town meeting discussion. So I'll comment on that. And then will you just mention, and perhaps you did, the time for the forum on the 2nd?
Oh, on the 22nd at 6:30 to 8:30.
Okay.
On June 22nd. Thank you.
And I think your sensitivity to the change that we're going through in terms of the regulations being lifted in general across the state, I think there are still real concerns about not everyone is in the same position to have been vaccinated or yet comfortable because of other issues. So I think there is going to be a transition period for the reopening. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the days and weeks to come. So thank you for that. All right, Carlin.
Thank you. Carlin Reed, PEG Access Advisory Committee Chair. 2 updates and 1 question. Our committee at our last meeting approved a list of 12 or more names for the PEG Access Program Awards. We're going to be making a plaque that will be hung on the MMN TV studio at the high school. Second update, we approved sending a letter of support for Article 41, which would urge the town manager to form a fiber broadband study committee. This letter will be included in the annual town meeting booklet. And the question I have is regards the June 15th expiration of the governor's emergency order. Where will committees meet after June 15 when the governor's executive order and our ability to use Zoom expires? I know Kristen's planning on having her June 22nd meeting by Zoom, but can we really do that? I don't know if you have an answer, but we need to start planning on that for us committees, getting our reservations in and figure out what we're going to do after June 15. Thanks. That's it.
Yeah, thanks for articulating that concern. I know the town manager's office and the select board are acutely aware of that. And that's why I think there will be much more coming in terms of information, in terms of the transition. Yes, it's both facility availability with the townhouse closed also for renovations, but it's also up on the positive side, the engagement issues that have been very positive vis-a-vis Zoom and much higher public participation in our meetings, which is we view as positive. And so, you know, this is being talked about with our legislatures and as other towns are doing. So all I can say at this point is stay tuned, and I know it's going to be upon us sooner rather than later, but we're acutely aware. So thank you.
Thank you.
And the select board did receive a letter of support for Article 41. Yeah. All right. Let's see, Eliza. Good morning.
Hi. So I'm Liza Bemis. I'm with the Ag Committee. Couple things. We are trying to hold a special meeting on May 24th at 7 p.m. to hear more about Article 31 from the Climate Action Advisory Board. Just trying to get that together now. Also an update on the filming project with Minuteman Media. They've pretty much finished filming the first video. They're editing right now. We're hoping to have that ready by Memorial Day or right around then, so it can be on YouTube and on farms' websites. And then they will start filming another one that we hopefully will have ready for Ag Day in September. The other update is that the Concord Museum is doing an Old Home Week in September, right around Ag Day. So they've asked to collaborate with the Ag Committee about an agricultural event around that. So we're just starting our discussion with them.
Okay, and the first recording you were referencing, can you just say a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's just instead of our usual spring forum, since we weren't able to hold that in person, we decided to do sort of a what's happening in agriculture in Concord right now, sort of video in collaboration with Minuteman. And they've been visiting different farms in town, recording some demonstrations and sort of like how-to stuff, as well as just a general overview of Concord agriculture and what's going on.
Thank you. Terrific. Okay, Mary.
Thanks, Linda. Hi, this is Mary Hartman. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee just concluded 3 hearings that were very successful, very well attended, good discussion. I think the public got a lot of their concerns and questions answered. I think the sponsors got some good information as far as questions they might have at town meeting. And I know that the discussions were helpful to the Finance Committee to develop our recommendations on articles that have a financial implication for the town. Following that, what we're working on right now is the Finance Committee report, which is mailed out according to our bylaws. It's mailed out to every resident in Concord 10 days before the town meeting. So we're busy working on that report right now. That report over the years has gotten a little bit bulky. So this year we've tried to kind of simplify it and reorganize it a little bit so it's more approachable. I think we've made some progress. We haven't made as much as I was hoping, but we're working hard on it right now. Carrie and some of us are working, and we got to send it to the printer this Friday so that you have it in your hands in early June. So when you get that on your doorstep, please take a look at it. A lot of good work went into it, and I hope you learn something from it and you come to town meeting. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I know you and your committee have been very busy.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff.
Morning, everybody. I'm Jeff Vassar. I'm the newly elected chair of the Public Works Commission. So at our meeting earlier this month, in addition to electing me as chair, David DeLong was elected as vice chair. Jim Terry, who you've seen for last year, is going to continue on the commission, as is Casey Winslow. We will have one member who is not asking to be reappointed, so we're looking for someone to fill that role. And I think we have a couple names, so I think we're in pretty good shape on that.
So Jeff, I hope you'll bring those forward sooner rather than later then.
Bring which forward?
Nominations for the vacancy that you're looking at.
Yeah, I don't have the names in front of me, but because I just picked up, I'll have to talk to the people who have the names and make sure those are brought forward. Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No problem. At our meeting earlier this month, we held a public hearing to set our water and sewer rates. And after hearing a presentation by Director Alan Cathcart and his staff, we voted to approve a 10% water rate increase and a 2% sewer rate increase. The water rate increase will be able to, as you know, as most people probably know, the rates go into an enterprise fund to cover operating and improvements to the systems. So under the water rates, there'll be a number of system-wide improvements, but we're also planning ahead for some filtration improvements that will be necessary to keep up with current regulations and requirements. So we're trying to plan ahead, knowing we have to cover that cost in the upcoming years. We also know that there's been some news articles about what's called the PFAS issue. PFAS is an acronym for a particular element that is now being tested for in water supplies. I can read off the name of it because I don't know it off the top of my head, but if anybody wants to know what PFAS stands for, I'll look through my notes here. But just, it's been said also previously publicly, this is not an issue with our drinking water right now, but we are just starting to test. Currently, there aren't any concerns about the level of PFAS in our water. But as we continue to test and as the regulations kind of evolve at the state and mostly the state, maybe the federal level too, but mostly the state level, we need to keep monitoring things. And that's kind of an unknown right now, and just want to put it on people's radar that that's something we are monitoring. We're not quite sure if any action is going to be necessary on our part. But again, in planning ahead, we're making sure we keep an eye on that. And the other item, which is always I think puts a smile on people's faces, is our drop-off event. No longer, it wasn't a drop-off swap-off, but our drop-off event happened last weekend. It's always a very successful event and was successful last weekend. As many of you know, it required pre-registration because of just trying to limit the number of people and control interaction between people. We did have a larger number of people register than we did last fall, which is great. And it was a great successful event. And hopefully when we get to this fall, we'll be able to open it up to be a true drop off, swap off as it has been in the past. So those are the major items for this month.
Thank you. And I know that the town as a whole is very appreciative for the diligence with which there's oversight on the water quality for the town. So thank you for all that work. And I know that some other towns are in some, almost crisis mode in terms of some of the new regulations and the findings. So thank you for being on top of that.
Welcome.
Okay, Deb. Good morning.
Good morning. The Board of Health met last evening. We do not have any warrant articles for town meeting, and I'm not aware of any vacancies at this time. We did approve a campsite for registration for the Concord Recreation. They're going to be holding a summer camp at the Willard School, so it was nice to have a small part of business that wasn't COVID related on our agenda. In terms of COVID news, the board basically voted to rescind the mask mandate that we had put in place back in the beginning of the pandemic, and we will just have residents follow state guidelines from here on out. We didn't feel a need for the Board of Health to impose any different mandates than the town, than the state has planned. We did discuss how that would impact certain events coming up, such as Memorial Day ceremonies and town meeting. But we sort of assume that those events would proceed as planned. But of course, we're available if there's any concerns. The Pfizer vaccine being approved for children 12 years and up gave us the opportunity to host a clinic in the town. It's this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon to vaccinate kids ages 12 to 18 with Pfizer vaccine. We've partnered with a Pelham pharmacy. We've got 1,000 doses of vaccine and can vaccinate 500 people a day for today and tomorrow. Surprisingly, we only have about 480 something people registered. That may be due to the fact that a lot of 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds have already been vaccinated. I mean, we have about 2,000 kids in that population. So we don't want to waste vaccines, so we will open up those extra doses to any town resident in Concord. It's very last minute. We'll do our best to promote that. But if anyone here on your committee, anyone here knows of a resident that needs to be vaccinated, please email Susan Rask and she will send you the link to sign up to be vaccinated. And her email is srask, R-A-S-K, @concordma.gov. So please spread the word. We've got vaccine. The clinics at the high school could not be easier. And it's this afternoon from 4 to 8 and tomorrow afternoon 4 to 8 as well. And then the second dose is, I believe, the first week in June. The only other thing is that I think I mentioned last month that we did get a grant from the state to work, a regional grant to potentially open a regional vaccine clinic in partnership with several surrounding towns. I think that's still in discussion. There are, as you may be aware, over 900 places across the state where people can get vaccinated. So I think there's a lot of places where people can get vaccine. So the question is, do we really need to put a lot of time and effort into hosting this vaccination site? as data as of a week ago shows that 70% of people in Concord have had at least one dose of vaccine. So, and that's, I think we're a little bit on the better end of many towns and cities in the Commonwealth. So hopefully that will continue to improve. And I think the Board of Health hopes that despite the mask mandates being lifted, that people don't have a false sense of security and still choose to get vaccinated. And I think that's about it for me.
Okay, and Deb, thank you for that. In terms of opening up the vaccination clinics this afternoon and tomorrow, was there talk about at least getting this on the town website as well with a news and notice?
I believe Susan was putting it out on the town and putting it towards the business link as well.
Okay,
I can
yeah,
double check with her, so.
yeah, okay, good. I'm sure you did address that, but I just wanted to make sure. All
Yeah.
right, thank you very much. Your committee is going to welcome a reprieve down the line here as well, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
No, not yet, but we're getting there. We're talking about summer camp, so that's good.
That's a good sign. Louise. Oh, you're on mute. Still not hearing you. All right, while you're figuring that out, I think we're going to move on. Tom? Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. CPC met last evening. We are working on our draft conditions for 15 applications. We're also working on our summary for Article 34 for town meeting. I think that's all going well. Town meeting on the 13th, we do have our first public info session on the 15th, 2 days later, to begin our next kind of annual grant cycle. And so we do have 5 term expirations, 2 select board and 3 reps from other committees. And we've been working with Matt Johnson on that to kind of coordinate with the select board in terms of our membership and getting ourselves recollected by Tuesday the 15th. So all going well. Groups continuing to work hard, and you know, we've got great applicants. So thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I don't know if you had quite joined us in the beginning. Did you hear my comment about new members filling current vacancies, getting sworn in by the town clerk, and that could, with arrangement, could be done before town meeting?
Thank you. We'll work on that. Appreciate that.
So that you'll have quorum and do
Yeah.
what you need to do. In terms of the select board recommendations, we're aware of them and expect them to be on the upcoming agenda on Monday.
Great work. Thank you.
Yep, good. All right, and thank you for anticipating, you know, those vacancies as the other committees are doing. Carol Ann, good morning.
Hi, I'm Carol Ann Hannon, Chair of the Council on Aging Board. The committee has not met since the last chair's breakfast, so I don't have anything to report. But we do have vacancies. We have 1 full member and 2 associate member vacancies. So if you know of anyone who's interested in senior citizens, please let me know. The Council on Aging is also thinking about people to interact with them who might be good for our board. So hopefully we'll get members soon.
Good.
And that's it.
Thank you, Carol. And hopefully you transmit Deb Green's message about the vaccinations to COA.
I will.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Paul, good morning.
Good morning, off mute. So the NMI Star Met committee last met in early April. We submitted our report, a pretty substantial report, to the select board, and we briefed the select board, I think, on April 12th. So right now, the committee doesn't have any meetings scheduled. We do have a vacancy, but we're in hibernation for the moment. we're waiting for the select board to review the report and to guide us in next steps, whether that be continued work in the committee or the formation of a new committee. We'll have to see. In the meantime, though, we are tracking a possible development on the site. And what that is a process called natural resource damage assessment. The Superfund law has two things going on. One is the cleanup of the site. And at the same time, in parallel, there is an assessment that's done by the state to determine the injury to natural resources over the period of time, and that those injuries need to be compensated. The public needs to be compensated for those injuries to the wildlife, to the habitat, et cetera. So I've been tracking that process with the state. It's a secretive process. It's a legal process. They haven't been able to tell me a lot, but what I can tell you is that there are funds for restoration that will be available from that program at some point. Whether that's a few months or a year from now, I'm tracking it very closely. It's a process I know a lot about. And the reason why that is important for the site is because half of the site is slated under a master plan for conservation. That has a beautiful bog. It has potential connections with the trail system. And that's a project, if you will, in waiting for funding by the natural resource damage settlement funds, potentially. There may be some legal issues with that, but so we're tracking that in tandem. Also, I'm going to start talking to the Natural Resource Commission because I know they're interested in that part of the site, and perhaps we ought to get together a conceptual plan that at the right time we can put in front of the state when those funds become available. So that's sort of a summary of the committee in hibernation, but at least one of us is poking their head out of the den to keep active while we wait on the select board.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, the select board gratefully received your report, as you know, and I think there is some work to be done to determine what the next steps were. The original conception for that committee is that it was a task force set up to get us to the point of the final report. So that's where we are right now.
Okay.
So thank you for continuing to monitor the items that you talked about, Paul. All right, I'm going to go back to Luis and see. No, we still cannot hear you. No. Okay, so Court, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. I'll represent Sarah Wilson on the Regional School Committee as well today and say that although we are exceptionally busy, as the schools always are, as May approaches June, we don't have a lot to report today because we simply have so much in motion. In terms of budgets, we are not as ready as we normally would be mid-May to project end of year because of all the grants we're managing this year. But we can say with some confidence that we're going to be tight at the Concord Public Schools level with a little more room for end of year surplus that could be devoted to excess and deficiency or prepayment on some of our obligations. So we're working on that. We've got contract negotiations underway across the board, sort of exceptional there where they all coincided at the same time. So we're trying to see that they get staggered in future years. In terms of efforts around diversity and equity, we have announced that Andrew Nemichi is going to serve as the director K-12 for diversity and equity. That'll be work that commences this summer with much more detail come the fall. On next week, May 26 at 7 p.m., there will be a public Meet the DEI director that he will host. So we'll see that that's prominent on the school website and of course on the town calendar. In terms of health, we've had one reported case this morning. We continue to monitor 24 hours a day status in the schools for kids and for staff and faculty. We did comply or I shouldn't say comply. We did follow the Department of Education state guidance around outdoor mask use to the effect that it's no longer required. And we did that more quickly than we have followed the state health guidance in the past, such that we have to dial back very quickly into school committee policies that are now at variance with that administrative announcement, complying with complying with DESI recommendations. The good news on the mask changes and what some people would consider to be uncertainty about what guidance to follow, CDC or state or local, because they're not all synced up. Where we have some confidence, and I think Dr. Green would agree, is our testing remains very, very robust, and will continue to be so. And we do have funding from the state for continued testing through the summer, and we'll be doing that. And I think, and finally, when we meet again, we will have already seen a 6-year member, Heather Bout, depart the school committee. So we acknowledge her service, and we'll do that properly and publicly. And we'll be welcoming Tracy Morano to the school committee come June, right after town meeting. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Court. Okay, Lee, good morning.
Good morning, I'm Lee Smith. I'm the chair of the Concord Development Housing Corporation. Not much to report. We continue to speak with the developer of the Junction Village project on a regular basis. He is in the process of finalizing his funding through the state and his low-income tax credit investors. They are projecting being ready to close on the financing of that, hopefully by the end of the year, potentially push into the first quarter of next year. But all systems seem to be a go at the moment. Related to that, the Open Space Committee is up and running. They are working on developing a plan for the open space and conservation restriction portion of that property. They, if they haven't actually signed yet, they're about to hire a landscape architect who will help with that process, and they'll be soliciting public comment for ideas and concepts about what the open space should look like, particularly as it relates to the river adjacent to that, and we'll be assisting with that as needed, and that is about it.
Okay, thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
So that is a change in the closing date anticipated for Christopher Heights, correct?
It's a slight push, but just given, I think it's partially related to dramatic increases in construction costs. So they had to go back to the state, but my understanding is that they've got the funding lined up that they need to proceed.
Good. All right, thank you. Alice, good morning.
Good morning. I'm here. Can you hear me? I can't
Yes, we
hear
can.
myself very well. I'm sorry. I'm here representing the Concord Municipal Light Board Plant, the Light Plant Board. And on our agenda from our last meeting are several interesting items I just thought it worthy of mentioning here. We have 2 power supply opportunities that we can buy into. Both of them are for 100% renewable power coming from hydroelectric sources. One is from the New York Power Authority, and the other one's a more local resource. I believe it's in southern New Hampshire. They are controversial in some ways, but not in every. They are producing good power of 24-hour-a-day electricity, but they do not come with the added benefits of renewable energy credits. And so they are not what's called additive to the total supply of green energy in Massachusetts. They are using existing sources. So while they meet the town's interest in providing 100% renewable energy in its portfolio by 2030. There's some discussion among the public who attended the meeting and some light board members about whether this is the best of all of the opportunities for increasing our supply. The light board is expected to vote on this at their June 9th meeting. And there'll be two separate votes, one for each of the power supply sources. We also heard an interesting discussion that was brought forward by citizens regarding the option for citizens or residents in Concord to purchase directly green power. So where the town is currently at about 60% of our total portfolio being renewable resources or non-emitting resources, there are some people in town that want to move quicker and want the option of buying up to 100% renewable power, which means the light board would go out on the market, try to find renewable energy credits for somebody else's excess power to be able to supply it to the folks who are requesting to increase or move more rapidly toward the 100% power requirement. So it's something that we're looking at, and the light board is trying to assess, the light plant is trying to assess the impact on its staffing to create another new market potential for those individuals who'd like to increase the speed at which we reach, at least how these individuals reach 100% renewable energy in their own homes. We also discussed 2 warrant articles. We have not yet taken a vote on the advisory committee that's being proposed for telecom. There are members of our board that needed some more time to understand and to study what the request is and what the shortcomings are of the light plan in meeting the telecom expansion interests. The other one was a positive vote in support of Article 31, which is the article that requires that all new construction in Concord be carbon free or all electric. And the light plant has said that there is adequate power to meet the needs. There are about 25 new homes each year that are built from tear downs, and they have adequate power for now and into the future, but will be very carefully watching the power supply needs as it shifts from where it currently is to accommodate the new growth. And the only other thing is that we are getting much closer to issuing an RFP for our advanced meter infrastructure requirement. And those are how data is transferred from the house to the light plant. And that's one of the most critical features in managing the grid into the future, and especially as we become more electrified throughout town, understanding the changes in the flows of electricity demand throughout the day and evening because of now plugging in vehicles in the evening. So I think those are the highlights from our last month and a half. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Right. Thank you very much. Alice, when you referenced the perhaps the town seeking power sources with excess RECs, will that result in additional cost to the town?
It would be additional cost to the individuals who have chosen to purchase the difference between what they currently have. There are some individuals that say 60% renewable energy isn't enough. I want to be at 100. I'd like to have an option of buying the difference from what the town gives me to offset my own use in my home. So those individuals would pay directly for those RECs. It will not be a cost borne by the rest of the residents in town.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Julissa, good morning.
Good morning, Linda. Thank you. So we don't have any warrant articles. We have one member whose term is expiring, and they're going to be probably holding that membership through the fall because we haven't had our honored citizen commemoration, I guess, for this year yet. So we want to make sure that that individual is a part of that celebration. Hopefully we'll have that scheduled in the fall this year. And following, hopefully, the state, the CDC and local guidelines regarding outdoor events and whatnot, the celebrations committee has decided to hold a Memorial Day commemoration, which is incredibly scaled down. So it'll just be the veterans, the committee themselves, as well as the Concord Independent Battery, the Minutemen, and the Honor Guard for the police. So we're inviting the veterans to hopefully participate in that day. And we do have a representative from Hanscom who's going to be coming and helping us out for that day. So
thank you very much. And hopefully this will be the last modification of a town event, but
we hope so. We're looking forward to having more people participate, but everything's sort of changed in the last couple of weeks. So we're just trying to make sure that we honor everybody.
And doing a good job of navigating this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Eric, good morning.
Good morning and thanks. And in the interest of time, nothing important to report.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for being here with that succinct report. All right. Let's see. Ed, good morning.
Good morning. Ed Nardi, Natural Resource Commission. Let's see, a couple of projects of note. Middlesex School, who applied for 2 artificial turf fields to be installed, a very long kind of process over the past several months. While the commission was no fan of artificial turf fields, that particular portion is out of our purview. However, it does appear that the new generation of turf fields, and most importantly, the infill material has advanced. Seems like it is more environmentally friendly, and gathered a fair amount of data in regard to those products. So that should serve us going forward as well, should that come before us again in terms of additional artificial turf fields, which we hope will not happen. And currently under discussion at the NRC is both drop-off, stormwater management, and ADA access improvements to White Pond, which is great to see. And that's kind of moving through the process. In addition, we have 4 projects under consideration under Article 34 for CPA funding. And then I think lastly, as to commission members, we do have 1 commission member stepping off at the end of May. But fortunately, we have what appears to be a very good person stepping into that role, so that we will not skip a beat in regard to having a full commission, which we're very grateful for. And lastly, hearing Paul talk about the StarMet site, they were good enough to come before the commission a couple of months ago and give us a broad overview of their thoughts. And we would welcome any collaboration as Paul learns more in regard to trail connectivity and open space over there. So as that proceeds, certainly open door at the NRC. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Have you brought forward the nomination to fill the vacancy?
We have, and he's been on a couple of boards before, so I just saw an email from Steven saying that there's really no need for an interview given his good work on boards before, but we will make sure he gets sworn in prior to the June 2nd meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jean, good morning.
Good morning, Jean Goldsberry from the Commission on Disabilities. We have not met since the last meeting. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow evening, and I can let you know what's on the agenda for that meeting. We'll be talking a little bit more about the needs of people with cognitive disabilities or cognitive decline in terms of understanding information at town meeting. Kate Hodges is coming to give us an update on the White Pond project, and we're going to be discussing the possibility of allowing people to apply to us for some small amounts of funding for accessibility projects in the town with the funds that we receive from the handicap parking fines. We'll also be talking about concerns about the use of motorized mobility devices on Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, and also about some accessibility in a couple of areas of that trail. And we've got someone from the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Committee coming to meet with us about that. So that's all up for discussion tomorrow evening.
Sounds like a lively meeting.
It does.
Thank you. Elise, good morning.
Good morning. So I'm with the Capital Planning Task Force, and we have determined our recommendations to the Select Board in response to their charge. And the recommendations, I'll just give you a tip of the iceberg of the recommendations. We're working on our presentation to the Select Board. We anticipate meeting with the Select Board on June 7th and presenting the recommendations then. Thank you, Linda, for that date. So our recommendations are focused on enhancing public awareness of the long-term capital planning process, increasing predictability of the process for sequencing very large projects, especially with regard to debt sequencing. So these are future projects that we're talking about here, very large, greater than $5 million. The recommendations also acknowledge the important integration of town and school projects and the ability for taxpayer dollars to fund needs across the board in as many places as possible with the same expenditure. They're intended to evaluate all future projects for sustainability and making progress on resiliency and climate impact. And importantly, our recommendations focus on an annual time frame that will for capital planning that will align with the operating budget process for clarity and increased opportunity for public to present their ideas and give their input. So just very briefly, our recommendations are specific about this long-term capital plan, how the projects will be evaluated, and they address a process for renewing and updating the plan annually with specific time frame. They're only focused on tier 3 projects. So these are very large projects, $5 million or greater, as I said, or any project that is phased that would, for the summation of the phases would be total $5 million or more. We have an initial criteria sheet for each project's evaluation. And again, importantly, a template to show options for sequencing that also predict debt sequencing.
So thank you, Elise. I know this is a high interest topic for the town, and we look forward to receiving your report on the 7th. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
Luis, you want to try one more time? No. Nope, sorry. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, whatever. I'm Luis Bersberia. I'm the Vice Chair of the Historic Districts Commission. I'm here representing Peter Nobile. We have one warrant article for the town meeting, which is Article 32, which is the expansion of the Main Street Historic District into 2 houses in Thoreau Street. These are buildings that were built in the late 1800s, and the request to join the Main Street Historic District was made by the property owners, and we are happy to sponsor it. The other issue that in terms of expanding the historic district that may have been heard about, it's the designation of the Jenny Dugan Road as a historic district. This is also was requested by the neighbors, but this matter, it's now being reviewed as the neighbors need to make up their minds exactly whether they want or don't want to join the historic district. That's the news as far as the expansion of the historic district. We have one vacancy in our committee that we're trying to fill, and we have one possible candidate. And that's just about our report.
All right, thank you very much. And again, I'll just repeat my former comment, and that is, I hope you're bringing that potential nominee forward sooner rather than later.
We'll try.
Okay, thank you very much. Lindsay?
Good morning. My report will be relatively brief as our meeting last night was postponed until next Tuesday. But we do have some exciting news. The library, as many of you may know, is open today at 10 a.m. for in-person browsing, both the branch and the Fowler branch and the main library building. So the acting director and staff are very excited about this, and hopefully those who are comfortable doing so will take a trip in and say hello to the folks at the library in person. We are also working with the town to to find a permanent new director. The town has engaged the services of a consulting group named Community Paradigm, and the trustees, friends, and the library committee will be working together and be a part of this search for a new director. And we also have a vacancy that we are working to fill. So we've got a full schedule and a very busy summer ahead of us on the library committee.
Thank you for that. And everyone's looking forward to being able to revisit the library. So exciting time for all of you, I know. Good luck with the search.
Thank you.
Nat, good morning.
Morning, Nat Welch, Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. Couple of things. The 75% design plan for the last half mile is now posted. We had some very lively and good discussions with the residents of White Pond, and where the planning department has done a great job in trying to listen to those concerns and file the plan the right way. We heard from the school building committee about the middle school and had a discussion about connecting the path, connecting path from the school to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail because of the heavy use by students riding to school. So we're going to send a letter to the committee on that. The tunnel art project is on hold. Our artist has moved on, so we'll see if that gets revived at some point. And we had a public member of the public speak about speeding on Old Marlborough Road and speeding by the crosswalks. So we drafted a letter to the TAC on that last week. And we found out the Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail are actually funding automatic signals for all of the crossings in Acton. So that's something we're going to look into. And then just on appointments, I had sent a note a number of months ago because we're losing over 2 years of committee time over the next couple of years because of this early termination. Our appointments are supposed to be rolling appointments, but this appointments policy chops off for one member 7 months of her term. So I sent a note, Linda, I resent it to you. And after town meeting and so on, I'd love to have the appointments policy reviewed because I think all of us are struggling to find people. And as you know, we ran into a quorum issue last year. But I'd strongly urge that the town think about changing the appointments policy so that the appointments are rolling and don't all end at the same time. So, and I'll do anything I can to help in that discussion positively. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I know every effort is made to have staggered appointments on these committees so that we avoid that to that extent. The last 2 years with the change in the scheduling of the town meeting has presented some problems, but I think we've been clear about, people stay on the committee until after town meeting as a minimum. And we'll deal with some specific issues beyond that.
Yep.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Glad to help.
Yeah. Carmen, thank you I know you've been double duty this morning in terms of meetings you're trying to cover. So welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize for being here late, but I was spent the morning with the League of Women Voters doing their warrant review. So a few things. Town meeting is coming up June 13th. The consent calendar has been finalized. It will be robust this year, and it will include 26 articles. There will be we have a total of 43 articles. 3 of them will not be moved. With 26 on the consent calendar, that leaves us 13 articles for full deliberation, assuming that all of those are moved. And there's at least one of them that there's currently still a question about. The deadline for the Finance Committee report materials is this coming Friday. The consent calendar will go into the Finance Committee report, along with some basic information about what our procedures at town meeting will be like this year. And the Finance Committee report will head out to the printer on Friday and should be back by the beginning of June. And forgive me if I'm going over things Mary's already said, but the Finance Committee report will come back at the beginning of June and be out to households. And it, as always, will be an important resource for us as we head into town meeting. Once again, there won't be presentations on the articles at town meeting this year because we are outside and we won't have visual screens. And so I'm asking for every article sponsor to provide us with a narrative summary of the background on their article and why town meeting should take affirmative action on it. In general, those summaries should be possible to do in one page, but if you do feel that you need more, just be in touch with me at moderator@concordma.gov and we can work something out. For example, the Community Preservation Act appropriations are on the consent calendar this year, and with the number of projects that are in that article, it's pretty difficult for the CPC to talk about them in a single page. So they have more than one page. And there will be some other articles that have that as well. The deadline for materials to go in town meeting materials, that booklet's going to go to the printer on the 28th. So the deadline for submission of materials for that book is noon on the 27th, to give Chris Carmody in our town house office a little chance for the formatting before that goes to the printer. And I would urge committees that want to issue recommendations on any of the articles to send me something in writing. All these things should go to tmsubmissions@concordma.gov. If I have any suggestions for you, I'll get back to you pronto. Otherwise, your materials will get approved and just head straight for the book. It'll still be open to people, any committee that wishes to address an article. It's still going to be open to you to come to the floor, a microphone at the floor to talk about the article. But the time limit for statements from the floor is going to be 1 minute this year. So if you've got a recommendation that you think is going to take more than 1 minute, please do put it in writing, get it to us so that we can include it in the town meeting materials booklet. We won't have any separate handouts. It'll just be that booklet. We're outside, so that keeps the blowing paper to a minimum and keeps us with a more orderly process out there. So the landscape is changing pretty dramatically and pretty quickly on mask requirements and public health guidelines. And I understand that the governor is going to lift basically all restrictions by the 29th of May. Our own Board of Public Health has concluded at its meeting last night that town policy should be in accord with state policy, and that makes sense. However, the governor's orders expressly exclude town meeting. That's a separation of powers issue. He's the executive and he doesn't tell the legislature how to do things. So our legislature, town meeting, is my purview in terms of what our processes are. And it is my view that we need to continue with masks when people are queuing and moving about the meeting. But the seating will be at 6-foot distance, the same as it was last year. And people can certainly take their masks off at their seats, and they can take their masks off at microphones to speak. We are doing really well on our vaccination rates in Concord. In my age cohort, we're at 89% fully vaccinated, and that's the best rate. But we still have people who aren't vaccinated, and we still have people who are vaccinated but really anxious. And I do not want to have a situation where we have a chill on the participation of individual voters at town meeting because they're worried about being in a big gathering where people aren't wearing masks. So out of respect to those among us who are still vulnerable, and out of respect for those of us who are still anxious, I'm going to ask everyone, please, to continue living with your mask when you come to town meeting. Wear it when you're queuing, wear it when you're walking around the meeting, and feel free to take it off when you're at your seat, and feel free to take it off when you are talking. I asked the League of Women Voters for some feedback on my proposed policy, and for some feedback on whether there were folks who would be uncomfortable coming to town meeting if they knew that there was no mask requirement. And there was a good healthy number of people who would be uncomfortable if there was no mask requirement. And that, I felt, told me what I needed to know. But I'm interested from this group, it's always possible that we'll have some kind of a mutiny because town meeting is still requiring masks and the governor's not. I hope that we are more respectful of each other and our vulnerabilities and our slowly dissipating anxiety after living through a pandemic for a year and a half, that we just stick with this for one more big gathering. But to the extent any of you have any feedback on this, I would love to hear it from you. And if you don't want to talk about it now, send me an email. Jean. Oh, is that okay, Linda? Can I? Sorry.
Yeah, of course, of course.
From the perspective of the Commission on Persons with Disabilities, we would certainly fully support that. We represent people who are immune compromised and have other kinds of medical issues that would make them very uncomfortable to come to a meeting where there were no masks needed anywhere.
Carmen, at the Board of Health meeting last night, the board did not feel that we needed to make any changes in plans already established for town meeting. The feeling was, as you said, there's a lot of people who may be completely vaccinated and but still are very anxious, and we certainly would not want to diminish participation. So.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Any other
quick question for Carmen, if I
yes,
could?
Eric? Yes.
First, I think it's a great policy, and second, Carmen, just to help us out, could it be appropriate to tick through the 13 warrant articles that are going to be discussed?
Sure. Happy to do that. Happy to do that. Okay, so Article 7, the personnel bylaw, has been controversial at hearings. If that is moved, it will have full deliberation. Article 9, which is the budget line item adjustments, and Article 10, which is the town budget, will both be on for full deliberation. It does seem appropriate that the millions of dollars that we decide to tax ourselves should be on for full deliberation. For the same reason, Article 13, the capital improvement and debt plan, is also on for full deliberation. Article 17, which is the appropriation of funds for affordable housing development, Last year, we had that on the consent calendar because both the select board and the finance committee recommended affirmative action on that. This year, the boards have different views on it, so we have that on for full deliberation by the meeting. Articles 28, 29, and 30, these are the public school budgets and capital article. Those are on for full deliberation. Article 31, which is the fossil fuels article, is on for full deliberation. And I've heard some suggestion that there may be an amendment offered on that to remove the exclusion for affordable housing. So more on that to come. Article 33, which is the demolition review bylaw amendment, that picked up quite a bit of conversation at hearings, and that is therefore on for full deliberation. Article 38, which is the two-family zoning bylaw amendments. That one I had actually proposed for the consent calendar. It has, it appears to have broad support in the community, and the only comments at public hearing were in favor of the article, and the article does carry out a specific recommendation of the envisioned Concord long-range plan. But it is the select board correctly pointed out that this is a pretty significant change to how things are done in Residence C. And so it is worth having this out there for full understanding and deliberation by the meeting. So that's on. The neonicotinoids prohibition, Article 40, is on for full discussion. That one, I think we have some differing views by the Agriculture Committee on that article. And so the community needs to have a conversation about that, that one. And the fiber broadband study citizen petition article, which is Article 41, we have a split in views on by different boards on whether or not that one is appropriate for affirmative action. And it's also pretty unusual that we would have a citizen petition on a consent calendar, since citizen petitions are by their nature not routine. So so that's the list. And the articles that won't be moved are 42 and 43, which are unpaid bills and debt rescission, and Article 1, which is choose town officers, because we already did that at the polls.
Okay, thank you, Carmen. All right, any other, Carmen, I assume you concluded your remarks?
Yes, please keep an eye on the website. Anything new that happens will be there under the town meeting tab. As soon as we have finalized the town meeting materials, they will be posted on the website, so they'll be available online probably a couple of weeks before town meeting for people who want to peruse them.
Okay, thank you very much. We're all looking forward to town meeting, as are you. Terry, did you have any comment you needed to make? You seem to be the only member who's not representing a committee here today.
No, thank you. I'm just observing. Thank you to everybody.
Okay, thank you. So thanks again, everyone, for all the excellent committee work done this year, and we look forward to seeing all of you at the town meeting. This concludes our meeting. Thank you. Bye.